Welcome to Montgomery Weekend Review. As we move into winter, Interfaith Works, one of Montgomery County's shining lights among NGOs, is preparing with a holiday giving program, Interfaith Works Winter Shelter Program, and an initiative that Interfaith Works is leading that uses individual strengths to help them move to financial, economic security and independence. Shane Rock, CEO of Interfaith Works, tells all about these initiatives, programs, and so much more. The closed primary system still exists in Maryland as well as in most of the eastern states. Given the increasing number of independent voters, voters who don't want to be part of one party or the other, the current primary system leaves them out in the primaries and probably is going to have to change. Ralph Watkins, League of Women Voters, which is an organization trying to spearhead a change, is here to explain. Diabetes treatment is an important part, an essential part of any primary care physician's practice. Michele Magera, a registered nurse care coordinator for CCI Health and Wellness Services, has the details about a program that CCI Health and Wellness is operating that assists in enhancing patients' health, especially as it relates to diabetes. It seems that we go from pillar to post when it comes to gun violence in this country, as we have episode after episode with no change in the way that we deal with guns. We also rarely talk of suicide being a part of the gun issue in this nation. Fred Evans, who comments for this program, for whom this is a very personal issue, has some thoughts and much more on this topic. Shane Rock's in the house. I love saying that. How are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure being on this program. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Listen, I want to get to this new initiative and looking at the strengths, but I want to get through these couple little housekeeping things. So there's exciting times in where Interfaith Works really steps up. And so let's talk first about the holidays coming up. What's Interfaith Works got going for the holidays?
Well, when the holidays approach, people really start to think about their neighbors in need, and the county has a program for a holiday giving program to really help out families that are struggling so they can have a happy holiday period. Interfaith Works is stepping up this year, and we're going to serve 200 more families than we did already. And if people in the community would like to help out, just call our office. We'll connect you and get you involved.
Holiday help. Winter is coming, cold. What's going on? You've got a shelter, and what's happening?
Years ago, a person died on the streets in Silver Spring of exposure. We have a winter inclement weather overflow shelter in Silver Spring that serves men and women, providing a safe and warm environment for them, a place to sleep at night. It's really important. This is one of the key things in the community that keeps people alive during the winter time.
Now, volunteers are needed. It's a professionally run support. What's
We can always use volunteers. We can always use community support. Again, just give us a call. Go to our website. We'll get you involved.
All right,
is this something faith groups, churches, synagogues, temples can connect with?
Indeed, exactly, and many already do. If an organization or a temple or a synagogue or a congregation wants to get involved, just give us a call.
Do we have an approximate number or any number of how many homeless people are in Montgomery County?
We do a point-in-time count every January, and on any given night, 900 to 1,000 people are homeless in the county.
Throughout the county?
Throughout the county.
Wow.
And that includes families.
That includes families and individuals and kids.
Yeah.
All right. So short-term and important work,
Right.
and Ralph and Fred, folks can participate in. Now, one of the exciting things, I think, we were talking earlier, you had a background in refugee resettlement, and some important things that go from there that are helping you to look ahead at what Interfaith Works is going to be doing in the future, and initiatives and working at people's strengths. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. In refugee work, when you're helping to resettle refugees in this country, you have 6 to 9 months to help a family go from arrival at an airport in a country they've never lived in
With no language often?
With no language.
No two
not
pennies
knowing
to
the
rub
culture.
together often?
Exactly. To being independent.
Yeah.
And so, taking that idea, we're really thinking at Interfaith Works not only about helping families and individuals to stabilize, to deal with their immediate crises, but build upon their experiences, their talents, and their strengths to move them towards independence in a relatively short period of time, so that they have income, they are dealing with their financial issues, they have budgeting, they have all those things in place to be successful.
Yeah, it's a great objective.
I was going to say, that sounds wonderful. If I had a family, for example, that came to my clinic that was in need of services, what would be the best way to connect them with your organization?
So we have a couple of different ways that we could connect. Just give us a call and we'll route you to the proper place. But we have a whole family services department that can do an assessment and to help connect that family to things they may need immediately to stabilize them, but also to put them on a pathway towards employment opportunities and employment readiness training. We can connect them to English language classes if they need that. Any kinds of supports based on their situation. It's all customized.
So you have a lot of other organizations that you work with?
We do.
Okay.
We do, including CCI Health and Wellness. So we partner together on running the Women's Emergency Shelter for the county, among other things. But so we try to build upon our strengths. Our strengths are case management and helping to empower people after stabilizing their housing and other needs. So that's really what we do really well. Other organizations do other things really well, and we build on those strengths.
You have good connections with employers. I'm assuming part of this is employer referrals.
We do. Interfaith Works has been around for 45 years. We're well known, and we're always reaching out to employers who need employees for positions where they can count on someone who's gone through a job readiness preparation course to be ready to hit the job and do a great job for them.
We have 15 seconds left. Where do you see yourself going with this? Are we working, Interfaith Works trying to work itself out of a job?
We're trying to. Unfortunately, poverty in Montgomery County is a huge thing. 70,000 people are officially below the U.S. poverty level. There are 183,000 below 200% of that.
In an expensive place. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it and watching as you guys continue to develop in this area. And good luck with the winter programs.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Ralph, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Still angry about this closed primary system, Ralph. I can see it in your eyes. Because you're coming, you've had experience out west. And you've watched what the great things in Washington and in California with these open primary systems. Maybe if you could start off a little bit with this closed primary system versus a non-closed.
Sure. You sort of have three basic options. What we have is a closed primary system. That is, I have to declare which party I want to vote in. So unless I am listed on the voter rolls as a Democrat, I cannot vote in the Democratic primary. Same for each of the parties. If there's no party designation, when the party primaries roll around, I can only vote for unaffiliated races, which in Maryland means the Board of Education. That's it. I have no voice.
And judges.
And actually, judges are on the party ballots in Maryland. They appear on both the Republican and Democratic primary ballots. It's an oddity.
But not for a decline, not for the independent vote.
That is correct. The unaffiliated voters don't get to vote at all for the contested judgeships.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
All right, that's the first one.
So
What's
that's another option is, assuming you still want nominees from the parties going on to the general election ballot, you could have an open party primary, and that's where there's no record on the official voter rolls of which party you're a member of. You just show up on primary day and say, I would like a Republican ballot, and that's it. They hand you one, so there's no distinction between Republicans and Democrats in terms of who can get a ballot. Everybody can get one of the ballots.
But you can choose. You have to choose one or the other on election day.
That is correct. You're choosing the Republican ballot or the Democratic ballot, and whoever gets the most votes is the nominee of that party.
Okay, that's the first two. What's the third one, Ralph?
The third option, which was pioneered by the state of Washington, is sort of a nonpartisan primary. So candidates who want candidates running for an office all appear on the same ballot. You might have 3 Democrats and 4 Republicans, whatever. The 2 with the most votes go on to the general election ballot. That could be 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 1 of each, 2 unaffiliated, doesn't matter. The 2 people with the most votes go on to the general election ballot. So that we call that a nonpartisan primary. Even though the party names are listed, the voter gets to select from the whole lot of them.
So if I wanted to make sure that a weak candidate runs against someone who's probably going to get a lot of votes, I could manipulate the system in a sense by voting for that candidate.
That is the concern about the party primaries, where anybody can walk in and ask
Right.
for a ballot. So if let's say I'm a Republican and all the Republican nominees are pretty well settled, there's no serious contests, I might want to go over and ask for a Democratic ballot to choose the weakest candidates so we could beat them easily. That's the reason the parties in Maryland and some other states prefer to keep the primaries closed.
And is actual facts supported that in places where there are primary elections that are based on this?
There's fear, but we've never actually seen evidence that it occurs. And one of the complicating factors is that that assumes that there's no contest in any of the races. We have governor, lieutenant governor, the senator, representative, state legislature, those are all going to be on the ballot. And it's sort of hard to believe that there's not going to be a contest within a party in at least one of those races.
It's clear that the primary system, the closed primaries in Maryland, benefit the parties. What's the impact, though, in terms of public policy?
The fact that we have closed primaries does tend to polarize the system. If you want the Democratic nomination, you'd better be pretty solidly liberal, because the more active Democrats are going to be more liberal. If you want the
Get you
Republican,
to the edges.
Yes, exactly. The moderate voters and a lot of unaffiliated voters are moderates. They don't really feel that strongly about either the Democratic or Republican candidates. They're excluded from the process. So that's a weakness in the closed primary system. In the number of unaffiliated voters has grown, and keep in mind that in Maryland, there's a large number of counties where only one party is in
Dominic,
control.
We got 30 seconds left.
So
Where do you see this going quick? So many things come from California and now the state of Washington, Oregon, and start moving across the country, come to us eventually. We see that finally decide that it's a good idea. Do we see that happening here?
It's going to take a long time in Maryland. The people who are now in the General Assembly are, of course, people who were produced by the closed primary system. They think it's fine. So it'll take a lot of pressure to change that.
Good luck, Ralph. You're a young man. You still have many years ahead of you to convince the Assembly, General Assembly, and the governor to make this happen.
Thank you, Don.
We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Michele, welcome.
Thank you.
Your first time on the show.
Yes.
We promise we won't bite. You were great in the first half. So let's talk a little bit about what you're working on for CCI Health and Wellness. So we're talking about diabetes.
Yes.
What a scourge diabetes is. Maybe if you could start a little bit with what diabetes is, because we hear about it, but I'm not sure all of us know what it is.
Well, diabetes is essentially a chronic disease condition where the body's not able to process the blood sugar that's in the body. And so you get high levels of sugar that's in the blood, and the body's not processing it correctly. So the problem with diabetes, and we all hear about diabetes a lot, is that it can cause a lot of damage. And unfortunately, it causes a lot of silent damage. So people can have diabetes and they can feel fine, they don't have any problems.
So it's the kidneys. What is it about the kidneys that diabetes destroys?
Well, diabetes, essentially, a good example, analog, is it's like having little shards, minuscule shards of glass in your blood. The sugar
Okay.
can equate to that. So
Whoa.
essentially, as it's moving around in your blood, almost everything it touches, it's causing this minute damage, and you don't feel it. It happens all at a very microscopic level.
Okay.
But it damages your nerves and your blood vessels. So essentially, blood supply, nerve damage happens, and because the kidneys processes
Processes it.
everything, all the
Right.
blood goes through your kidneys. it causes a lot of damage with the kidneys, and you see renal failure. You have a lot of blood
Eyes.
vessels in your eyes that gets
That
damaged.
diabetic nerve pain, we keep hearing this on the commercials. We've seen like every other
Yep.
commercial on television.
Okay.
Is this diabetic nerve pain.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
from the damage that's happening to those nerves. And unfortunately, usually when somebody starts to have symptoms or notice these things, it's too late to correct. The damage becomes permanent. So we work a lot with the prevention.
So is this something, so I don't know what's happening, how do I check to find out whether I'm getting this sort of damage?
Go to your doctor.
Oh, my doctor.
Say, doctor, am I damaged?
Yes.
Well, normally when people go for their preventive health check, they'll do a sugar check. We work a lot with known diabetics, so what we're checking on a regular basis is something called the hemoglobin A1C. And the hemoglobin A1C essentially gives us a level or an average of blood sugar levels for a 3-month period. So it's a nice indicator from our level of telling us where a person's blood sugar is at, and whether it's controlled, whether it's poorly controlled, whether it's out of control.
How are we doing here in the county and in your work? Are people getting in to do their check and try to on the prevention side, or as you said, by the time you're starting to feel this pain, it's a lot of damage
Yeah,
has been done?
unfortunately, yeah. But we work very hard at CCI Health and Wellness in the prevention, and we have a program where we're targeting patients with poorly controlled diabetes. And I work with a program where we specifically are able to identify those patients based on that A1C. And we have a very targeted program where it's very integrated with doctors, nurses, community health workers, and it's very patient-centered and patient-focused and patient-driven. So we do a lot of work with our patients directly, but they're driving. We're working to get them to drive the care.
What are the most important things that people who don't have diabetes yet can do in their lives to prevent that
Good
from
question.
happening?
We all know.
We have just a little bit over a minute left.
Yes, so exercise, diet, stress reduction, getting your preventative checks, all very basic, all things we know we need to do. Eat healthy. We all know what we need to eat and not eat. Avoid the sugar,
But as America's getting weightier,
which we are, yes.
it's diabetes going up at the same time.
Yes, it is.
Concomitantly.
Yes. Currently, there are about approximately 30 million
Wow.
Americans with diabetes, and it's estimated that 84 million are at risk. That's with the obesity and weight issues.
If you're reducing in about 30 seconds, can you reverse diabetes through good exercise, better food?
If you haven't crossed that threshold of having the chronic condition of diabetes, if you're pre-diabetic, if you change your exercise, diet, lifestyle, you have a better chance of avoiding turning into a full-blown diabetic.
5 seconds left. Do you see confident? Are you confident that we're moving in the right direction?
Well, we're doing our best, and we're working very hard. With the preventative care, we feel it's very important, and getting patients to come in and see their primary care doctor. CCI likes to see people, so.
Well, please come back again. Give
Thank
us an
you.
update.
Very
Yep.
informative.
Thank you.
Well, we've gone through some pretty important issues here, and now we turn to Fred Evans with something that is literally life and death.
Yeah, when I was a principal in Montgomery County, the incident in Columbine occurred, where 13 people were killed and many wounded. And that incident, among others, but that one really struck me very hard. And I had
Columbine was a couple of kids went in and
That's
just
right.
blew
Students.
blew
That's right.
apart, just came in with automatic weapons.
And we have, and upon reflection, that was almost 20 years ago. Upon reflection, and all the other incidents, which we don't have time for me to describe, but that have occurred. And when the most recent incident in Las Vegas occurred, it struck me again that we have these incidents, and then we sit back, and almost it's as if we wait for another one. And I was looking at some statistics, although I won't bore you with statistics, that
Nothing boring about this topic.
33,000 people a year are victims of gun violence. But within those numbers, incredible amounts of suicides, and the fact that we do not regulate, it's the only consumer product, based on what I read, that is not regulated by health and wellness strategies. I mean, automobiles, we have to have seatbelts, you know, and in 21 states in America, gun deaths exceed automobile deaths. And
coming back, it seems that because of this whole Second Amendment issue, I think people are, you know, no matter what different paths local and state governments have tried to follow in terms of to look at guns as a little bit like, you know, regulating a little bit like you regulate speech, and you can't say fire in a crowded theater.
Right.
But time after time after time, behind the Second Amendment, so many of these are just wiped out. It's really frustrating.
And that's what really troubles me. Without talking, I don't want to sit here and blame the NRA. Or we need, as a populace, to really bring this up more often and talk about it with our elected leaders. It's similar. It's a scourge. It's a medical scourge. It's a mental health scourge.
Do you feel it's also a cultural scourge? I mean, what do you see as sort of the cultural elements that are keeping this going?
I wish I could answer that, Shane.
Yeah.
I know another thing that I read. The United States has 25 times the amount of gun-related deaths than any other developed country in the world. And that to me says so much. And I think another problem is I haven't been affected, knock on wood. No. And that's the thing. I read a story about a young girl, very personal. She was 13 years old, and her brother, her last name,
2 minutes left.
Christine Hauser, her name is, and she was 13 years old when her 15-year-old brother was killed at Columbine. And it talked about the effect of that on her and her family. She's now 30 years old, and how she still thinks about it. And when she was in middle school, how the kids, whenever she laughed in middle school after this, the kids thought there was something wrong with her because she had lost her brother at Columbine. You know, those kind of things that I wouldn't even have thought about, the effect of on the family, you know. And it's almost as if we've accepted it as part of our society.
What do you do with the sort of, there's an all or nothing argument that either everybody has guns without limits,
Yeah.
or they're going to take them all away. Nobody will be allowed.
Well,
how do you speak to
here's
that?
one. The areas where they've done background checks, 3 million guns were not sold to those folks in states where they have background checks. So that's one answer. That's not the answer. And
About a minute left.
and the kind of weapons that are out there that are sold, AK-47s. I mean, and almost anyone, there's no regulation. Almost anyone can get their hands on it legally.
And ammunition. And but that's where they were talking in Las Vegas. The hospitals had not seen wounds like this. These were
Combat
weapons. That's correct.
And
that's correct.
It's similar to what the police officers are now using, all combat weapons, and now we've got the combat. It's
And I want to say this in terms of this issue.
20 seconds left.
Is that I asked to talk about it because we don't talk about it. It happens. It goes in the back of and I'm talking for me. It goes in the back of my mind, and then we wait for the next incident to occur. And I think we need to get our leaders, all of us, discussing it.
And the only thing we know, unfortunately, is we're going to have some more episodes.
Yep.
Keeps coming back. Well, I don't want to end on that downer note, but
Right.
this has been a great show. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I want to thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Weekend Review. I'm Don Moores, inviting you to join us next week at this very same time.